The end result was success for the IRGC. You should be happy. So
I'm not
it
happy
was
at all. I don't like
no,
the
no,
IRS. I have
I'm
nothing to
joking.
do with
I'm
IRS.
joking. I'm joking.
Okay.
The end result was that the Reagan administration declared that let's get the hell out of there, and they redeployed, and Beirut was taken over by the Amal and Hezbollah. So that was the beginning of a new phase. That was the beginning of the rise of Hezbollah power, and ended up with complete control of the country.
This framing, this analytical distinction between this creation of this IRGC boogeyman is an ideological tool. Finally, it seems that the moderate establishment Democrats are getting some fire. They're finally waking up and doing something. As a matter of fact, there was a headline in the New York Times that said that they're preparing for war. Wow, finally they're going to stop being such wimpy bitches, and they're going to get off their asses and do something about Donald Trump other than just talk and so on. But no, wait. Let's read the headline here. What does it say here? Moderate Democrats prepare for war against an ascendant left? So basically, this article, and it's quite an extraordinary article. I would recommend that you read it. I wouldn't recommend that you necessarily subscribe to the New York Times to read it. Just find another way to read it. It basically quotes this moderate group within the Democratic Party that is so upset by the victory of Abdul al-Sayed, and that they're raising like $15 million not to go against the Republicans, not to go against Trump, not to prevent him from packing the Supreme Court with more right-wing thugs, not to prevent him from arresting innocent people in the name of deporting them, not to fight against the empowerment of ICE and other security agencies, but to fight against the people in their own party, in their very own party, who, like Abdul al-Sayed in Michigan, are winning. And why are they against these people? Is it because they're like criminals or crooks and so on and so forth? No, it's because they say that they're not electable. These are the same people who got Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton the nominations, basically handing the presidency to Donald Trump twice. They're the ones who blocked Bernie Sanders in 2016 and again in 2020 from getting the nomination despite the ground game that he had and his popularity. And so now they're raising money to go against Democrats. This is just like the sickest crap that I've ever seen. And it just shows how these people, these establishment Democrats, and let's name some of them: Chuck Schumer, Kristen Gillibrand, Hakeem Jeffries, although all have ostensibly endorsed Abdul al-Sayed and they're coming around to supporting Zohran Mamdani, some of them more publicly than others. Although they are pretending that they're following the will of the voters, they're also running this counter operation to quiet the will of the voters and outmaneuver the Democrats in the left flank of the party who they don't like and who they see as a threat. The bottom line is they don't like these guys because of Israel. I think that's mostly it, not completely, but basically they want the Democratic Party to be more pro-Israel. The people in the country in general, the voters, are really against Israel and supporting Israel. They don't necessarily hate Israel. Some do, but they just don't want any more money to Israel. They don't want this conflation of the U.S. and Israeli governments that some are trying to put into place. And so they're trying to stop this. I'm Borzu Deragahi. This is my podcast. It's called Badlands, and you can subscribe at borzu.substack.com. You can also find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Still in summer mode here, and things will start getting back up to normal. In a week or so, I go back to Paris, and then in a couple weeks after that, I'll be back in my base in Istanbul. In today's episode, I have an interview with the scholar Nadim Shahadi. Nadim Shahadi and I don't agree on anything. He's a big supporter of the United States military intervention in Iran and other places. But we still debate and we have a discussion. Sometimes, as you'll hear or watch, we kind of talk past each other a little bit. There's a little bit of frustration there on the part of both of us. He is very knowledgeable about Lebanese history. And in this episode, we talk basically about who lost Lebanon, who screwed up Lebanon. Was it Israel? Was it Iran? Was it the United States? I argue that Lebanon's problems predate the Iranian revolution and the entrance of the IRGC and Hezbollah onto the Lebanese scene. He says that no, in fact, he thinks that it was the IRGC and the antecedents to the Iranian revolution that caused Lebanon's problems in the first place. Anyway, it's a lively debate, and there's a part 2 coming up that's even more somewhat explosive that I will air sometime in the coming weeks. But back to the issue of these people, the Dems, I just want to read a couple things, a couple passages from this article in the New York Times. We are preparing for the next war that is coming, said Jonathan Cohen, the president of the Third Way, a leading centrist Democratic group. And he revealed to the New York Times a new $15 million effort between now and 2028 to discredit democratic socialism. I mean, that is just insane. They're raising $15 million to discredit the only people in the left wing and the center left of the country that have had some successes. That includes Zohran Mamdani. Think about that. Finally, they keep saying, wow, young people aren't interested in politics. We're losing to the Republicans. We're losing to the right. Finally, someone comes up with this formula for success. It has worked in New York. Mayor Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic Socialist, his popularity is just skyrocketing. His policies are pretty popular. Some are controversial, but still overall, people trust him in New York. Even people who didn't vote for him are in support of him. And these guys are like, nah, we're going to basically sabotage these guys, this left flank of the party. Think about what sick losers they must be to do this. I don't understand why they don't just start their own party. I don't understand why they don't just leave. Because they obviously don't believe in democracy, or they can just join the Republican Party and they would be welcome there. I think they would be welcome there until they find out that they're all a bunch of racists and anti-Semites at heart, and then they get kicked out of there too. But they can start their own party as well as join the Republican Party. They don't need to try to sabotage the only decent thing that has happened to the Democratic Party since I remember. The hypocrisy of these people is unbelievable. They say vote blue no matter who, and they've been saying that for decades. And look, I mean, I've been voting blue since I could vote. You know, I voted for Clinton twice, held my nose really the second time. First time, there didn't seem much of a choice because he was running against George W. Bush, and that was the time of the Iraq War, and it was such a disaster, and the economy was going south. I voted for effing Al Gore. I voted for John Kerry. I voted for Obama twice. First time, again, more enthusiastically than the second time. Ooh, I held my nose and I voted for Hillary Clinton. I knew what a problematic character she was, how corrupt she was. Yet I voted for her because of the danger of Trump. And I voted for their Joe Biden. I voted for Biden. And I voted dutifully for Kamala Harris too, all in attempts to keep Trump away. And I don't identify with any of these people. I don't identify with their politics. I think that they're establishment shills. They're all corporate Dems. They're all like vile corporate Dems. And I still voted for them because I agreed with that adage, vote blue no matter who. These guys seem to be like, vote blue unless we don't like the candidate that the voters like. Then you come up with $15 million to sabotage those candidates and sabotage that movement. You know, I think that is just unbelievably unacceptable. And it really gets me upset. I hope it gets you upset. And I hope you reach out to Jonathan Cohen, Cowan, president of Third Way, in social media or in some other way. If you got his email, just send him a little note telling him what you think of him and what he's doing. There's more from this guy and his group. More details about how they're going to spend this. Mr. Cohen said the $15 million his group would spend through 2028 was not directed at individual candidates. Instead, the group plans to target the Democratic Socialists of America movement, which he believes poses a mortal danger for Democrats. He said the effort would include opposition research into DSA, polling, social media programs, and educating Democratic activists and leaders. It would target both proud Democratic socialists and those such as Dr. El Sayed, whom he derided as performing the DSA dodge, flirting with Democratic socialists enough to get their organizing manpower and support while remaining distant enough to avoid the explicit label. Wait, I thought they weren't targeting individual candidates. Why is he now targeting already Abdul El Sayed? In any case, here's the thing that kind of makes me feel a little bit better. The reason why the DSA is so successful is not because necessarily that they have some decent ideas, although I think that helps. I think that helps as the core of what helps the DSA. I think the reason why the DSA is so successful is because it's not like fake. It's actually real. And these guys have little chapters and they have meetings and they have picnics and they have social events and so on. So you know what that is like? That's like the political parties of Western Europe and the United States during the 20th century. And those political parties have, like Mr. Cowen, become basically hollowed out shells where they essentially are a bunch of donors and a mailing list and an email list and a subscriber list and a bunch of websites, not really an organization. And the reason why DSA has been so successful is their ground game. And so these guys think by raising a bunch of money from a bunch of billionaires, spending it on some social media crap, and putting some stuff on the web and doing some opposition research on the DSA, on like these, activists in Minneapolis and New York and so on, who are like basically tired of having this bankrupt politics. And by doing this, they're going to be successful and they're going to overcome what is truly incredible about the DSA, which is their ground game. They're thousands of activists, tens of thousands, increasing number of activists who are getting involved in politics as a social activity as well as a political activity. And I think that is somewhat reassuring. I think that Mr. Cowen will probably fail in his endeavors, but I don't think that he can't do any damage. And I think that it would be good for people to just keep an eye on these people, these moderate establishment shills who are trying to sabotage the only decent thing that's happened in American politics in the last 20, 25 years. And with that, here's my interview. Here's the part one of my interview with Nadim Shahadi, in which we talk about and we struggle to get to an understanding about how Lebanon got screwed up. Whose fault is it that this amazing country that is perched on the eastern side of the Mediterranean, a really unique place if you've never visited Lebanon, this incredibly open space where different sects and different political factions have some kind of democracy. It feels like freedom when you're there. You really sense that, even though it's not exactly structurally a democracy, it feels like it. It feels like freedom in that sense. And it's a really unique space in the Muslim world and the Arab world, and why it's become so dysfunctional and such a failed state and such a disaster at this point in Lebanon, a country where the water never works, the electricity doesn't work, the internet is super expensive, and many people are just struggling to get by economically, but also just in terms of the infrastructure, it's completely destroyed. Here's that interview. So I'm joined by Nadim Shahadi. He works for and is affiliated with an organization that I have a lot of respect for. It's called Umam Documentation Center, and they chronicle past crimes committed by various parties in Lebanon, including during the Syrian occupation, when so many Lebanese people went missing, as well as abuses by Iranian-backed groups inside the country and other militia groups. And this is one of Lebanon's problems, I think. It's very interesting. It's like they had this horrific civil war. There's been literally no accounting for it. Like the same warlords who were doing war crimes in the civil war, they're now wearing suits and in parliament. It's quite extraordinary, and it sort of shows some of, I think, Lebanon's problems. He also works on other projects and is affiliated with other organizations, including U.S. think tanks, a long list of affiliations that I will put in the show notes. He and I have gotten into it on Twitter every now and then, said that he supports, I never said he was quite part of the clique of neoconservatives. Neoconservatives, as you've probably heard a million times, are these leftist Jewish scholars who broke from the left in the late 19th over the issue of Palestine and Israel. They had a choice between their principles and Israel, and they chose Israel. And they have been very influential. Their ideological successors have been very influential in U.S. foreign policy. They're the ones who pushed for the Iraq war. They were involved in the Pentagon at that time, took control of the foreign policy apparatus. And many of them now, their ideological successors and children, ill-begotten ideological offspring, are involved in Trump's decision to launch this war against Iran that is basically dominating foreign policy discourse right now. Dr. Nadim Shahadi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm first of all, I'm not a doctor. I'm a failed dropout in my PhD. And most of the affiliations you can ignore because they're sort of past affiliations.
Okay.
But I mean, we had a very interesting exchange. We disagree on so many things that it's interesting to compare the two perspectives because they're really diametrically opposite. But at least the good news is we agree on Syria. That's one thing. I'd love to explain to you why Lebanon is like that. But the real problem is, I mean, let me start with this. You call it Trump's war on Iran, which I call it an extension of October 7. So that's I think makes the whole difference between the two perspectives. Because for me, Iran has been very successful, the wise warrior success in having the war, in waging war away from its own territory for 47 years. And it's also, as a wise warrior, understood its enemy and fought it where it was weak, by proxy, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Palestine, in Iraq, in Yemen, keeping it completely away from its territory. So it could that's a definition of an imperial forever war for me. This is, you see, it could have continued and Iran could have sustained it forever because it chooses where to hit the United States where it's weak. And its territory is safe. And from time to time, it engages the enemy in negotiations and gets sanctions relief and stuff like that. I think it was very clever in manipulating the enemy and in fighting it by proxy. Now, from where I sit, I'm in one of the proxy countries that was destroyed by Iran in a way.
Was it destroyed by Iran? Though I would question that it was destroyed by Iran.
Yes, yeah, I can. Yes.
I would also definitely question from a 35,000 mile view from the sky, it could look like Hamas was acting on behalf of Iran or on Iran's orders on October 7th. But the reporting does not bear that out at all. The reporting indicates, in fact, that Hamas was made this move on its own, having to do with the logic of the Israel-Palestinian conflict, which predates the existence of the Islam. And also, I would also just like to point out,
we can say it dates from Cyrus and
no, I wouldn't say that it dates from Cyrus. I would say that it dates from 1948 with the establishment of Israel and the unjust treatment of the Palestinians. And I would also say that Lebanon's destruction started with that as well, with the camps that were set up in Lebanon and the displacement of the Palestinian people. That was a process that destabilized Iran. Iran, if anything, it walked in, from one perspective, in terms of Lebanon, it walked in on an open door. It basically took advantage of these people who, I'm not sure which sect you belong to, Beit Mahdi. I know very well. I know there's Druze living there. I know there's Christians living there. But it basically took advantage of the fact, or at least maybe even gave solidarity to fellow co-religionists in the south of Lebanon who were long basically the underclass of Lebanon, and they were trampled upon by the Israeli occupation. And it used that open door, the fact that this community that originally welcomed the Israeli invasion to rid them of the Palestinian menace. And then Israel does what Israel'd, and it went overboard, and it basically alienated the Lebanese population there. It massacred the Lebanese Shia, and it prompted the creation of Hezbollah, which was an offshoot of Amal, which also predated the Islamic Republic of Iran.
No, let me give you the other perspective. Sure. And I would recommend a book by my marja, Professor Houshang Shahabi, which was the last book I published before I left Oxford on Iranian-Lebanese relations, 500 years of Iranian-Lebanese relations. You see, the liberation movement of Iran, the exiles from the liberation movement of Iran ended up in Beirut. This is the open door. Lebanon is an open door. Lebanon was an open door for the Palestinians. It was an open door for Iranian exiles. It was an open door for Syrians. It's an open door. Yeah. So I think I love this description. So, and if you look at the broader regional perspective, in the 50s and 60s, there was a Shiite revival, and the Shiite revival was in Iran, of course, in Iraq, in Lebanon, sort of regional, but in the end, the only open door left for it was Beirut. So these Iranian exiles, who were basically the beginning of the revolution, ended up joining their comrade, Imam Musa Sadr, in Lebanon, and they set up the Amal movement. I mean, Mustafa Shamran set up the Amal movement. I mean, the list is long. I mean, Sadiq
so you
Zadeh
said,
was
I
yeah.
think we're in agreement here.